Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and I'm all that is average, but I'm all that is snowboard gear knowledge. And thanks for being here while I review the Capita Aeronaut 157. Next to it is the Megadeth 159. Over there is the Union Atlas, which I primarily rode this board with, and my Ride Fuse boots. I got this in good groomers, decent groomers, and some okay powder. Some areas were pretty good and fun and turny. Other areas bottomed out, and when you bottomed out, there was pretty hard, uneven snow below. So this 157 was all I could get for demo, and it fit me pretty well. But if I were to own this board, I would size up to the 159. It would better suit my weight, and I'd still be able to turn it. Now, when it comes to shape, this has a little bit of taper, not a lot, and you don't feel it that much. It's a very directional ride though. You feel more set back on board than you do the Megadeth or other boards like it in Capita's line, like the Black Snowboard of Death, the Kazoo. Even to a lesser extent, the Navigator. It was funny, I felt a little more centered on the Navigator than I did on this, which is weird because it's definitely more of a directional board. Then you throw in that Camber. It's almost full camber. You know, you're getting maybe a centimeter on each side of early rise and then a little bit of flat. So this just has this locked in, advanced to expert ride. You've got a medium flex overall, I would say, and it's a very dynamic, poppy feel. I mean, Capita, that's just what they do. Just for shits and gigs, here's the Megadeth. And I definitely had a little more pop with the Megadeth, but this was very close. I could butter on this pretty well. Not as easy as you would think. Actually, other boards with more early rise in the tail or nose help me butter the nose or tail better. The pop is just so good though. It was so easy for me to access it, and it just really springs. If you want a poppy, full camber kind of feel, this is the board. Now, when it comes to uneven snow, yeah, that one powder day I had where there was hard, bumpy snow underneath and you got into a wind-affected shallow spot and I bottomed out, it would just buck me. So I wish it had a little more dampness because it feels rubbery and poppy, but then it can give you a little bit of feedback in hard, micro bumpy snow, and it can also give you a little too much bucky and bounciness in softer, uneven snow. You got to mellow out on this, and this bucked me out of my line a couple times. The base glide is very good. Capita's really just upped their base glide game the last few years. It's no Megadeth, but it's very good. The tune isn't too gnarly, and it's good for all conditions riding. So it'll glide really well midwinter, but it'll also not just suck up and stop in spring conditions. And Capita does a pretty good job at base tuning. Sometimes they get a little too aggressive for my taste, especially right out of the wrapper with the structure they put into the base, but overall, it's very good and better to have it than not have it. I felt much more comfortable straight lining on other boards than this Aeronaut. It feels a little more on the turny side, like it doesn't really want to point it as much, but short straight lines weren't hooky. It didn't feel like it was fighting me on a straight line. It just didn't feel as stable as the Megadeth, the Mercury, and others, but you're trading that cool, quick turning experience and all that camber for a little bit more stability at speed. So when it comes to edge hold, the Aeronaut doesn't have the death grip, that little bump in the middle of the side cut. And recently it's been integrated into the side cuts of so many different Capita boards. It holds a good edge, but it's not amazing. It's kind of more good snow bordering on hard snow, where the others can definitely do a good job in harder snow that have death grip. Now, when it comes to turn initiation, this was pretty quick. I could just immediately get onto that edge. Sometimes it almost felt like too much. And the minute I got it over, I felt like the side cut was ready to go too. So the overall turning experience of this is very quick edge to edge and very turny. I felt like this was a great board for those that like to go across the groomers, like to circle carve, a lot more than they like to make narrower, longer, drawn-out S-turns at higher speed. That's more for the Black Snowboard of Death and for the Megadeth, and even for the Mercury, it does more there too. This just felt more turny. The spring out of the turn, though, is very good. This carved really hard. So if you set this up centered or even a little bit forward, it's okay switch, but I always felt like I was definitely tail light and nose heavy, but it's still very doable. But man, this is gonna be a fun board in the pipe. This tracks really well into jumps for being such a turny board, but it also is great for like little side hits around the mountain. Now, when it comes to powder, with the Aeronaut 157, you get negative 3.25 inches back from center of board at a 22-inch stance width. That's a really good setback on board for having this little amount of taper, but then you have extra camber, a narrower board, so it actually didn't float as well as the Kazoo or the Megadeth. It was closer to the Kazoo, but the Megadeth felt a little better in powder, and the Navigator's a step above. That has more directional float than all of these. So overall, I had a really good time on the Aeronaut. I don't know if we like formed this perfect relationship where we'd want to move forward and have a beautiful season together, but man, this thing has some spring, some pop, some carvy drive, and was a really good time, especially if you're somebody with maybe a little bit smaller sized boot like I am, a size 9, and you want a mostly camber, hard carving, more directional ride. Maybe you have something really good for powder. This could be a great fit.